Hi, we're Capra. We're from Lafayette, Louisiana, and you're watching Eclectic Arts.
Hi, this is Bethany Berger, and you're watching
Eclectic Arts.
Aloha, I'm Jake Shimabuko, and you're watching Eclectic Arts Media with my good friend Mark.
Let me hold this the right way. We're exiting the good light, so you guys get the awful truth. No, I'm kidding.
Then you got people that are hard workers, and then you have, hey!
He was super excited about it. He's like, we're going to cut your eye. I was like, oh, okay, sure.
I mean, I thought it was really good. It's just half the time I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, why did you do that? Why are you making that face?
As always, Mark, it's always an honor to hang out with you and spend this evening with you. And visit with you for dang sure. I really appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts Media based here in Seattle, Washington. And thank you so much for joining me on this Saturday, the 21st of January, 2023. And a few quick housekeeping details before we get to the interview today. I want to thank Mike Evans for having just talked to me an hour ago from the UK about his wonderful animated series and his band and his music. And I'll let everybody know, if you happen to have tuned into that interview, we are going to be doing a part 2 very, very soon. So if you'd like to know when that's going to be, please follow me as Eclectic Arts Media, one word, on Instagram. That's where I post everything first, and then some of that information migrates over to other social media platforms. If this is your first time joining me on my YouTube channel, if you could do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell, I'd greatly appreciate that. And if you're on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there, that would be great. If this is your first time wanting to ask a guest a question and don't understand how this works, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll have instant access to the chat. Same with following me over on Twitch. And just please be aware that any questions or comments that come through, only I see. My guests do not see them. So I will fold those in as the conversation goes along. And so please be aware that I am seeing those. I'm not trying to ignore you or something of that sort. But yeah, please, this is a great time to ask questions if you have them for my guest. And then we'll kind of go from there. And as anyone knows, I am a huge fan of Yellowstone. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Mo Brings Plenty 3 times. I've had this pleasure speaking with Jake Ream once so far. Actually have like my stuff that Jake was kind enough to send to me, which I was not asking for, which is back in when we did this 2 years ago, but he signed. He sent me something else, got all my Blu-rays and my DVDs and all that kind of thing. We know that we're in this middle part of season 5 right now. We're all kind of like, oh my gosh, we have to wait till summer, but that's just the way things go. If you're a Taylor Sheridan fan like I am, then you've got plenty of other things to be watching, and there are more things coming up. So let's get to my guest today, and we'll kind of go from there. All right, my guest today is a Cajun culinary machine. He has been cooking up the best food for television and film sets for many years. He is also now a fan favorite character on the hit TV show Yellowstone on Paramount Network. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Media virtual studio, Mr. Gabriel Gilbo, better known as Gator. And let's see. We'll see if we can get, there he is. Oh, look like we're having some connection issues. We'll see if we can kind of get him back on in a second here. This is the beauty of being live, folks, that sometimes technology kind of works against us. And before I'm sure Gator will just come right back on. He's on location right now, so he's trying to find the best spot to find the connection for his internet service there. So we were working through that before we went live, and I'm sure he'll come right back on, and we'll get to hear from him. And again, if you're just joining us now and you want to ask Gator questions or have comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, which you can do through the YouTube channel by subscribing to it. And then you can also follow me on Twitch, and you can ask your questions and comments there. And we'll see. I see him trying to rejoin right now. So let's see if we can see a face. So we'll try this again. Okay, let's see. Do we have Gator? Can you hear me, sir?
Sorry, I lost you there for a minute.
Yeah. How can you hear me now? Let's see. Let's see if you can. Can you hear me now, Gator?
I can hear you. I'm having a little connection issue. I'm hoping it clears up here in a second.
Okay. All right. Well, as I was telling folks that you know, it's the beauty of technology and that you're on the road right now. So we're doing the best that we can.
Mark, we were doing so good. Give me a second. Let me see if I can't do a little bit better here.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
And we'll see where we can find a good spot here. And it's trying to connect. And I see he's reconnecting. So let's try this.
Much better.
Okay, there we go.
Much better.
Yeah. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. I'm enjoying my first day off of our new job here in Texas.
Okay, well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm such a huge fan of the show, and I can't wait to talk to you about the show. I will let the fans know that. Please know that Gator cannot talk about anything that's coming up in the rest of season 5 or other things. They have NDAs and all that. But if you want to ask about things that have already happened, then that should be open. And obviously about his culinary background and his catering services, the craft services that he does. So let's kind of start with, gosh, there's so many things. I'm such a nerd.
It's a big story. I know that.
Yeah, so let's kind of go back to at least the beginning part about, and we'll go back even further, but how did you get involved with Yellowstone in the first place with your craft services business?
Well, I started doing craft services just about right out of high school when I was old enough to get in the business. And I worked down in Louisiana for many years. And at the time, New Orleans area was really an international hub for filmmaking. We had some of the biggest productions on the planet there in the New Orleans area for several years. And during that time, we really created a lot of the best filmmakers out there these days, especially as far as, any industry professionals, grips, electricians, a lot of camera people, and very specifically assistant directors and people of that nature, PAs and assistant directors. So a lot of those types of people ended up on big shows across the country after their first few years in New Orleans. And so a lot of the assistant directors and PAs that I had worked with in the past, several of them ended up on Yellowstone. And I had taken a pretty strong foothold in New Orleans at the time, and so I had established myself as a major player down there. And Yellowstone had started up already, and it was not even on my radar. Utah, that was it's a long way from New Orleans, and they were struggling up there on Yellowstone. It's a hard show, and it's hard locations, and you've got Taylor, who's if you can please that guy, great, but it's not exactly easy. You have to be more than above average to be in Taylor's group. And some of the ADs were up there working on Yellowstone, and he was having trouble with his craft services and getting people fed in the extreme conditions that we worked in. And one night at midnight, they had told him a few times, they had told production a few times about me. And one night they just rang the phone while he was sitting at the table at about midnight. So I got a phone call at about midnight on a job I was doing in New Orleans, asking if I was interested in coming to Utah. And if anybody knows anything about working in the film business, we don't turn down work. If you get a call for a job, you say yes. because if you start turning down work, you won't get any more. And so of course I immediately said, absolutely, I'm in. And they said, well, can you leave right now? And I said, well, it's midnight, and it's Friday night, and I'm on a show in New Orleans. I still had several hours to go, as you and I discussed earlier, that, if I get off of work before 2 a.m. on a Friday night, I'm doing really good. And they said, yeah, can you leave right now? And I said, well, that's crazy. I'll leave in the morning. So I packed all my stuff after work that night and drove straight through the night all the way to Utah to go join a show that I had no idea what it was called and no idea what it was about and no idea how big of a deal it was fixing to be.
Wow, that's an amazing story. That here you are, getting a call at midnight, working on another show, and it's like, yeah, can you come do this show? And yeah, can you come do it right now?
Right now, you need to get here right now because it's happening. You got to get here. And the only information that I really had, they asked me if I needed to know anything, and I told them the honest truth, and that was the address. That's really all I need to get there. I just need the address. And the only instruction that I was given from the production team over there was that they have a director who's very hungry, and that as long as I got there and fed this director, his name is Taylor, that everything will be okay. And I said, great. That's all. That's exactly what I needed to hear. I'm on the way.
So that begs.
Little did I know who that was.
So that begs the question: when you get there to Utah and you're getting all your stuff set up and you're making food for this director, what was your interaction with him like, and what did you make?
The same thing I used to break anybody down on the first try, and that's ribeye. A nice big fat ribeye that you pretty much can't get in any restaurant anyways. So when you get one on set while you're working, it just it amplifies it even more. But serving a nice prime ribeye, 24-ounce ribeye to somebody that's never met you before, you can make friends really fast. And I showed up and I hadn't slept in days, because I'd just been driving, and I didn't have a fancy driver or a fancy truck. I drove up in there in my old Mac Tools truck conversion with no air conditioning all the way to Utah. So we drove through the night, and we prepped in a Walmart parking lot at 3 a.m. and showed up for day one and kind of went through the day. And I wasn't really worried about who I was going to meet or what I was going to do. I was just trying to do my job. And towards the end of the day, I could hear some clanking on the asphalt of the parking lot we were in at the stage. And it was a new sound for me. It's not a common sound for me to hear spurs on a movie set. And lo and behold, I sure did. And Taylor walked up in the back of my truck, and I had everything all polished and shiny. The chrome was glistening, and I had my smoker right next to me. And he walked up and kind of looked around and did a little assessment. He said, "Gator?" And I said, "That's me." "And you must be Taylor." And he goes, "That's me." And I said, "Oh, well, good to meet you, man." He goes, "Is that your barbecue pit outside?" I said, "Well, yes, sir, it is." He goes, "Cool. When are you going to light it?" I said, "Well, I was thinking about lighting it right now." And he said, "Yeah, that's the right answer." And that's kind of been, Taylor and I have become very close friends over the years. And that's our conversations we have. And that's why we're good buddies, because he doesn't call me unless it's about meat, and I don't call him unless it's about meat either. It makes it for a real, very simple friendship we have.
That's awesome. And as you're just telling that story, I can actually hear Taylor's voice saying that to you. That's the right answer.
Yep. No, he's not a complicated guy.
Oh my gosh. So as you drove over there and got everything set up on that first day on set in Utah, how many people are in your crew for catering services?
We had 2 when I started. It was just me and one other person. That was how it all started right there. And then we picked up a couple locals on the way, a couple Utah folks, a couple Montana folks. And it's just grown organically since then into some bigger teams. And obviously we've had to spread out more. Back then, Yellowstone was just a simple, what it was. It was just the best TV show that was ever going to be made. That was all. It was very simple and very organic. And many of those people that were there my very first day on set are still here today. And obviously, that's a long time to stick with one job. So every year, those of us who were there from the beginning get closer and closer. And it's very special. And it's a very important part of why Yellowstone is so good, is because the people that make it are so good.
Well, that does sound incredibly special when you've been working on something for so long with a lot of the same people, a lot of the same creatives, and you kind of you want to do well for each other on that set.
Well, it also helps when everybody knows what this is and what it's supposed to be, and they know how to do this job perfectly without the need to ask questions or need instruction. We know what to do. We're here and we know what to do.
Okay, so if we're staying with that first season when you were working on the show, and like you said, you started off with yourself and one other person, what kind of logistical nightmare was it trying to do catering craft services for the show?
It was like nothing I'd ever seen before, just because the volume was a big thing. But mostly it was that right after I met Taylor for the first time, they said, okay, that's a wrap. We're on the move. And I said, oh, cool. Where are we on the move to? And they said, Montana. And I said, wait a minute. I thought we were coming to Utah. They're like, yeah, no, now we're going to Montana. And I was like, oh, great. And I had never been to Montana before. Obviously now it's one of the most important places to me in my life, but I had never been, and I kind of Google searched the town where we were going, and I was like, Darby, Montana, population 600. Man, we got to come up with a plan, because there was like one grocery store in Darby, Montana, and here I have over 200 people to feed almost solely, and so I've never packed a truck so full in my whole life leaving Utah. And I had a box truck, and then my kitchen that I was driving at the time. And I remember I had to get in and out of the window because I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out of the truck. I had coolers stacked all the way to the ceiling, and I had every square inch was packed with food. Man, we didn't know what we were going to encounter. That was a perfect start to the last 6 years of Yellowstone, was packing all those coolers to the ceiling in my truck and not being able to get out. I had to go through the driver's side window to get out of the truck.
That's such a perfect picture that you just painted about.
It's very funny.
Oh my gosh.
I remember specifically getting driving through those really small towns in the mountain parts between Park City and Darby, Montana. I was in an old converted tool truck that was my kitchen, but it still had all the logos on the side. It says Mac Tools. And I would go through these little small towns, and I'd pull into a gas station, and all the locals would come running up. Hey, you got tools for sale in there? No. It's a kitchen. Oh, cool. What are you trying to sell? No, it's a kitchen. It's from my work. okay, so what are you trying to sell? Because we need stuff. We're in the middle of nowhere. And you know, it's just another part of just being inducted into Montana's lifestyle and that, you know, the whole specialness of it up there.
That's funny. It's almost like you could have had a little side hustle going on.
Oh, I could have. They would have bought everything I had. They would have bought. I mean, I could have sold the whole operation in a parking lot at a gas station for cash. They were when they saw there was a tool truck in town. They were very excited because they don't get a lot of resources up there.
Yeah, no kidding. And hi, Michelle, who just joined the chat. Thanks for joining us. Mo Brings Plenty's manager.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us today. And so Gator, when you got up to Montana or Darby, Montana, and it's just you and one other person, is that at a point where you can bring in some locals to help you, or is this still a two-person show?
I believe I brought somebody from Utah right away. Somebody had reached out to me that one of the people that was working on the show in my department prior to me being there was worth taking with me, and we ended up bringing her on for the year, and any amount of help was very helpful.
Okay. So for someone like me,
but again, Yellowstone was so small and simple back then. Obviously, now it is a very different animal.
Right, and we're definitely going to get into that as well. But in those early days, and for someone like myself and other people that are watching and listening to this right now that don't have any concept of like cooking for 200 people, what's that like for you? And in terms of what's your process of trying to figure out what you're doing for the day, or you already mentioned supplies and how much that was an issue.
Well, number one, it's in my nature to feed people. It's part of who I am. It's part of who my family's been for generations. It's part of what my dad was all about when he was doing craft services. It's just what we do. This is how we know how to do this. We know how to do it better than most people. And failure's not an option, Mark. You have to do it, or you should have just not showed up. So we always make sure to get it done somehow, even if it's down to I have to serve, I have to serve carrot soup today. That's what we got to serve, something to feed these people. But I can remember very well that I had just got my new barbecue pit just recently, and that was just one of the things that they needed. They needed barbecue on Yellowstone. They were desperate. It was like I was made to be there. It was a perfect storm for me to show up, and I remember I'd do barbecue every day, and I'd get there real early and start cooking, and I'd feed them throughout the day, and I'd always have a big plan for the end of the day. And one of my things I always tell people about doing this, especially on this show, is as soon as you've got a plan, that's how you know your plan's not going to work, because planning ahead really doesn't get you anywhere here. You just plan for everything. And I can remember doing all this barbecue, and it was a new concept to me to be so daylight dependent. And season 1, we were very much daylight dependent on the show, to where when the sun went down, we weren't going to light up the woods. We were going to shoot until there's no light left, and then we wrap. And it was kind of a new concept to me. So I'd have all this stuff going on, and I have all this food, and it'd be, okay, all right, the briskets are ready, the ribs are ready. Okay, that's a wrap. And I'd be like, oh, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And I'd get on my walkie-talkie, breaker. Guys, come get your barbecue. Come take the barbecue to go. I need you guys to go. And it was some of my finest memories of Yellowstone with some of those people I told you about that have been there for so long. And I can remember them all. I'd have my music turned up real loud in the truck and jamming some good tunes. And everybody would be lined up all the way out of my truck, 100 people. And they'd come in with their big to-go boxes, and I'd fill their whole plates with ribs and coleslaw and potato salad and brisket, smoked chicken. And I've never had such a responsive group to appreciate that so much. And they don't take their food home, and there's no McDonald's on the way home from Darby, Montana. So having that at the end of the day is everything, you know?
Yeah, no, that's this it's making me hungry.
That's
right
what
now.
that's what they said too. They
Oh
still
my.
say it.
Yeah, well, no, I can only imagine. And I have such a random mind, and I'm going to kind of detour real quickly.
I'll get this a lot of times. They'll be eating a rib and say, Gator, I'm starving. That may or may not be my fault, though. There's a good chance that one's on me.
Have you had, like the clip that I showed earlier, have you had anyone on cast or crew that do have dietary needs that are challenges for you to meet?
Believe it or not, least of all in the cast. That's very commonly my least picky folks on Yellowstone. But there's always that because this is Hollywood, baby. You're gonna get them all types, all walks. So I make sure to expand my comfort zone and try new things. And as long as the other party is also willing to do the same, then we can always come to a very good middle ground on different dietary restrictions and desires, you know. And I love all types of food. So if you're a vegetarian or a vegan or whatever you are, and I'll make you vegetables that make you never want to think about meat again. But that's only because I love vegetables too, as much as I love meat.
Okay. Well, it sounds nice when you're talking about basically if both parties will communicate, and then you can find that happy medium where it works for everybody.
Yellowstone has never been about what you want. It's always been about what the people want. Because the most important thing about Yellowstone and why it's been so successful is because the only thing that matters is what you guys watch on TV. And I've said that time and time again about this show is it's not about the actors. It's not about us. It's not about them. It's not about anything. It's about what you guys get to watch on TV. It's all that matters. And it was very interesting when I first came here to see that we didn't have any divas. You know, we didn't have any of those hot, you know, those typical, you know, stereotypical actors that are super demanding and need this and I need these in my trailer. Nope, they just want to work. They're just here to do the job, and they're out there in the dirt kicking shit just like the rest of us.
That's awesome to hear. That everyone was just like you're saying, giving everything they had to make sure they had the best show possible.
I mean, everybody from top to bottom was all in on Yellowstone, and that's why it succeeded.
That's cool. And yeah, I guess we should also mention happy birthday to Luke Grimes because it's his birthday today.
And he just had a new album drop, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
in fact, our first day on the show we're shooting right now, the first thing I do every day when I get to my kitchen is I turn the music on because I can't work in silence. I need a rhythm. And I think the very first song played on the production of Bass Reeves was Luke Grimes' new single. And I made sure to text him a picture of me cooking a few 100 pounds of bacon that he was really getting my day started right.
That's awesome. It sounds like it's, for the most part, just one big hardworking family.
It really is, and we didn't have a choice. You know, we were all stranded together in a little town of 500 people. We had to become friends, or not. It's one or the other. And wow. I've been very fortunate to become close with a lot of the cast, and they've really helped me through learning and accepting and embracing the other part of my life that it exists now, which I never really planned for. Which you know how I feel about planning. Doesn't work. So don't make a plan. You're just gonna get yourself in a hole, you know.
Well, that's a really good segue. Let's talk about your first appearance on the show as the character of Gator. And if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like an early morning scene where you're cooking up for the Cowboys outside before they start their day. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Very important. What an important day, you know. It wasn't that long into production of season 1. I mean, I couldn't have been there for more than a couple months, if that. And, you know, I make fast friends, Mark. You know, I'm just good at that. And again, it might have a little something to do with food, but Taylor was I think he was just like hanging out with me for a minute, eating something. And he goes, you know what? I'm going to put you, you're going to be in the show today. I'm going to put you in the show. Oh, cool. You know, thought maybe I'd be like a background, you know, or whatever. Didn't really think anything of it. And then he left and walked away. I didn't think anything of it. I kind of moved on with my day. And I mean, about 5 minutes later, some of our people from the art department came over to me and they said, hey, so Gator, we're building you this grill. And we just want to know if this works for you. If it's this, you know, is this a good format for you? And I was like, what grill? What are you talking about? And they're like, oh no, Taylor told us to build you a whole barbecue pit here outside in the yard at the ranch. And he gave us like 4 hours to finish it. So we just want to make sure that it's to your specifications. I was like, man, you can build a barbecue pit in 4 hours? And they're like, well, as long as you're okay that the concrete's still going to be wet when you use it. And I was like, use it? What am I doing? Did I miss something? And they said, yeah, you know, you're doing your whole barbecue scene. And I was like, me? I'm doing a barbecue, you know, and that's how fast things happen here, you know, and man, these guys built this whole stone barbecue pit that's still there to this day at the Chief Joseph Ranch in Darby, Montana. And they called me up to come to set, and they sent me to wardrobe, and wardrobe looked at me and they said, this is great. You look perfect. Get in there. Because apparently I'm always in uniform. And I went in there and Taylor was behind the camera directing and everybody was looking at me and Taylor says, okay, go. And I said, go what? What am I supposed to do? He goes, I don't know, Gator, just do Gator stuff, you know, do whatever you do. And I said, oh, all right. And I looked around and I saw some vegetables and I saw some onions and I saw a cutting board and I had a knife in my hand. I said, well, I don't really know what to do. So I'm just going to start doing Gator stuff, I guess, whatever that means. And I just started to like prep my dinner for the day since I was there. And I remember Taylor being back there and all I heard after I did this for an awkwardly long amount of time for me to be, you know, dead in a camera shot. And then I hear Taylor go, oh, yeah, fuck yeah. And I was like, what happened? And he explained it to me a while after that one of his biggest things is he wants everything to be real. You know, he wants everything to look real. And that's why the cowboy aspect of Yellowstone is so popular, because so many of our fans live that life and they see that somebody actually knows what they're talking about here. And he explained to me that one of his biggest pet peeves in films and television shows is seeing people in the background cooking and they'll be chopping air or stirring an empty pot. And he says it drives him absolutely insane. And I guess that was it, man. I sealed my fate right there. And it was too late, you know?
So going from that initial barbecue scene to where you have actual lines of dialogue that you have to say, or however that works. Is that stuff that's been scripted for you, or is it something that you have to kind of just make up, or Tyler to have to throw something at you and say, okay, say
Well,
this?
thank goodness I don't have to make it all up. So the first scene was the octopus thing, and I once again never got a heads up or a choice. It was, oh, by the way, you're in the scene tomorrow. Okay, cool. I mean, I'm a yes man, dude. I'm not afraid. And he says, yeah, you and Kevin. And I said, Costner? Kevin Costner? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, you're sure? And he said, yeah, I mean, I wrote it, so you're going to do it. All right. You know, I'm not an actor, right, Taylor? And he goes, yep, I know. Okay, cool. Whatever you say, boss. And that was probably one of the most terrifying things I've ever done in my whole life, is stepping into a set with Kevin Costner. And just every time we go into that dining room is nerve-wracking. And I'm always given a special task every time we go in that dining room and film something. And it usually consists of being the comic relief in a very uncomfortable situation, or my favorite, which is carrying something really, really heavy in a very tightly packed room full of many actors and a bunch of camera operators and grips in a tiny, I mean, the dining room is very small. So I always end up doing some sort of ballet maneuver with a big platter in my hand, trying not to drop this 25-pound plate. And that's always been the joke over the last few years when I go and do my stuff. And, you know, the crew's all there, and we're all close friends. So there is some mockery going on every time I go onto the set. So that the joke always ends up being, it's like, so what, Gator, would they give you really heavy to carry today when you do your scene? Because lo and behold, I always get something that's really awkward and heavy to put down on the table. And I have to make it look like I'm not struggling every time.
That's really funny. I mean, and I'm thinking for me as a fan that, to your credit, it doesn't look like you're carrying something heavy in those scenes. So you're doing a great job with it.
The good news is I'm always carrying something heavy anyways. It's just when, 4 cameras are watching you do it and you don't want to drop an octopus on Kevin Costner's head. It's a little bit intense.
Did you have anything to do with that being an octopus in terms of the food that was?
Well, I know that I'm the one that helped it make look it good. Sorry, okay. The one that made it look good, because I remember very specifically that we had our food stylist out there with this big ass octopus, man. You remember, it's big. It wasn't like your average grocery store octopus. And they were out there, and it was windy and cold, and they were trying to char this octopus and make it look good. And I walked by and I looked at him and I said, you guys should probably let me step in and help you guys out with this. I think you need a little bit. And they were like, oh, thank God, because we really need help. And I remember I went and got a big flamethrower out of one of my trucks that I used to burn all my charcoal for my smoker. And I was out there in the parking lot flame throwing this octopus to make it look like it had been, charcoal grilled, And then as the years went on, I got more and more involved with the production of the actual food that's in the show, But that was kind of my first one where I had to step in and said, hey, well, I think you guys need a little help.
Well, that makes so much sense to have you involved because of what you do and what Taylor wants of it looking real.
Real, yeah.
Yeah, let's get the expert in there. I mean, he can help us, make this thing work better.
Yeah, and every year more and more that happens to where this year in season 5, it was pretty much I had a hand in planning just about most of the food that we did that was in the show. And then if you watch this season so far, I did a really big barbecue scene that was very special to me because I got to help design the set, and that was most of my own equipment in there. That's my actual barbecue pit in there. 3 of my actual barbecue pits in there, but and you know, all the food that we were doing for the big branding scene, that was a very hard scene to do. It took us a few weeks, and we had a lot of people out there, and of course it was, you know, people don't think of Montana being hot too often, but it was the hottest time of year in Montana, and it was about 100 degrees every day. So we got our butts kicked out there in that heat, and it was a really special scene for everybody, and all the food that we saw there in the show, we all ate it. We ate every little bit of it. It was very delicious. So it was, you know, just makes it's another part of the realism of the whole show is putting people in positions where they can do that kind of stuff and be part of making this wonderful piece of art, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it reminds me of the conversation I had with Jake about, you know, all the work he does on the set and behind the scenes and everything. It's like, well, this is what he does. So it's like, why not have him eventually? Why don't you get in some scenes here? And it sounds pretty similar with your story as well.
He may have been even more hesitant than I was at first. Because Jake's a real cowboy, man, you know. And the last thing a real cowboy wants to be on is be on a camera, I promise. But once again, no is not really an option around here. You just whatever it takes, you're in.
Yeah, no, that I'm thinking back to the conversation I had with Jake before we even did his live stream, and he was kind of like really apprehensive about doing anything like this.
I actually can't believe you got him to do it.
We had many conversations on the phone, walking through this and making sure that he was going to be taken care of, and that I had his best interest at heart. And also, I know he told me later he made a call to Taylor to make sure that should I be doing this thing, just to make sure. What do you think? And he said, oh yeah, actually do it. Gave him some pointers like what not to maybe say, or depending what the interviewer is like, and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, it turned out wonderful, and it was great having him on. I see Michelle saying that she loves this behind the scenes stuff, and Gator and his role has always fascinated me in the show. So
it is always it's not lost on me, Mark, that what I have here and what's been done for me and what I've done for myself here over the years. And it always tickles me that when people come visit the Yellowstone set, there's always, it's either one or two things they want to see first. That's they want to see the house, the lodge, or they want to come see Gator. And it's very much not lost on me that that's how special that is, and the fact that that's what I'm about, dude. I'm about that. I'm about making people want to eat, and party, and have a good time and enjoy life, and I think that's why I've become so integral with the show is I present a whole, there's a whole emotion and vibe to what I do, and it really helps when we're working such hard conditions and hard hours and very physically demanding stuff and mentally demanding, to have, you know, when you step away for a minute and you come over and I got some, you know, great rock and roll playing and there's smoke coming out of the truck and there's good food and you laugh, you know, very important. It's very important to what we do is to have that the escape, you know. I think that's why everybody likes it so much, and I like it more than they do. Trust me.
Well, and I think from for a lot of the fans out there that everyone can relate to food.
Everybody.
Yeah, and I think when your scenes started getting more and more pronounced as the seasons went on, as the character of Gator, then it became like you knew something funny was going to happen. Like you said, during a very awkward, you know, family scene or whatever was going on at the table, and it became very endearing. So it's like we want more Gator. And then, you know, like in season 5, which is only halfway through, you had a lot of scenes this season.
A lot of scenes, yeah, and I'm sure more to come.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know what's going to happen season 5, part 2, but I won't be long before I find out.
Well, that's kind of a good segue because so as Yellowstone blew up and got more popular every season, have you been involved with the other spin-off seasons or not seasons, shows in his universe?
Any Yellowstone related show I've been either an integral part of or had my hand in it in some way or another. We did 1883, we did 1923, we'll do the next season of 1923, Bass Reeves here, and then the most common question I've got asked over the last couple of years, since Jimmy went to Texas at the 4/6s, the most common question that the fans ask me is, when is the 4/6s coming out? They all want to know. Everybody asks me. I don't know, but I can tell you that it will. But that, of course, will be one that I'll be a part of as well. If Taylor's there, I'm there, and I promise that you don't want to see Taylor on a movie set without me there, because it's not going to be pretty.
Well, that's great that you've been involved with the other shows in some capacity that are related to the Yellowstone universe. And I'm curious, like, let's say with 1883 or 1923, has there been a show where it's like, man, now I have to feed 400, 500 people where it just exploded?
Absolutely. By the end of 1883, which was arguably the hardest show I've ever done in almost 14 years now. By the end of 1883, I think I was feeding close to 600 people every day. And that would consist of, we'd have multiple operations within a few miles of each other. And I'd get there about 2 hours before we started shooting for the day. And I'd have a line from then till an hour after we completed shooting for the day. So roughly 16 hours every day, I'd have a full line of people eating. Just because that's the only way you can feed that many people in one spot. Without having a team of servers and a team of cooks, and it's still just a few of us. We got it done, but it was a feat. It was amazing.
That sounds like I'm picturing that in my head. Of like, you're just constantly grinding. Then
1883, we went through. I think I was one of the first people to commercially purchase 4/6's beef from the ranch. And I went through 11,000-pound steers on 1883. We had them all custom butchered and processed just for the show. And I went through 11 of them on top of all the other food that we cooked. So that it just kind of 11,000 pounds of prime dry aged beef were served on that show. Right through these fingers, it was quite a journey.
Holy moly! I'm seeing Michelle saying Gator's food makes him the Taylor Whisperer.
No doubt. I don't know if anybody has that luxury of always having a pleasant interaction with the boss like that, and. Another thing that's not lost on me, having that is beautiful for me, and yeah, I might be the only person that can keep that guy calm.
I'm kind of curious if we're talking more about the craft services and your culinary background. So how do you approach food? Not just for the show, but just in general. If you're going to do like your own, I don't know, approach to food, what is it?
It's actually a really interesting question. Really good idea is to not have any set state of mind when you're cooking. It For me, it's very important to be very flexible and to be organic, not organic food, but organic as in the way you develop your dishes and the way you prepare your food. Just let I like to let my food speak to me. So I don't use a ton of recipes. I just kind of cook how I feel every day. Obviously, if you have the luxury, like I sometimes do, especially in Montana, of having um, more than above average ingredients. In Montana, I have the best produce I've ever seen in my life, and obviously, we have always have great access to good quality meats. But it's really about reading the energy of who you're feeding and the day and what does the sky look like and what color are the trees today, and it's all based on what my environment around me more than anything. Then hey, I'm cooking this tonight. Some days I'll change my plan for what I'm making for supper 3 or 4 times, just because the weather might change, or maybe we move up a mountain and I can't do that anymore, and maybe we're going to be inside in a building today at the end of the day, and not all dishes are made for all scenarios. So I think keeping an open mind and not being stuck to, hey, I'm making this recipe, but I'm missing this ingredient, so I can't make this recipe. Well, maybe you make your version of that recipe. Be open, be free when you're cooking. You should cook with your heart first.
Very well said, and it's interesting how you mentioned that you take in all these different factors about what you're going to be doing, and like you said, sometimes you're going to have to change that just based on what it is, and so it kind of begs the
Yeah,
question about.
don't get married to any ideas, because so anything could happen and change your plan.
Yeah, for sure. And since you come from a family of providing food for folks, is that basically your start then? And when you're younger, or was there ever a point where you're like, you know what, this isn't really me. I want to explore some other things, and you came back to food?
I actually wanted to. Have a. Uh, I actually wanted to be like a Jeff Corwin. That's what I really wanted to be when I was growing up. I wanted to have like a outdoor adventure animal show, and that's what I really wanted to do when I was a kid, and all the way up till I was, until my first day on a movie set, honestly, and beyond that. Um, and I actually chased that dream for a while, but you know, uh, a lot of signs over the years in my younger life and up into my teens and early 20s. A lot of just signs just pointed to the fact that I think I was meant to feed people. Uh, and once I started embracing that, everybody embraced me right back. And it was, you can't fight it at one point when you walk down the street and people were yelling my name out because they remember eating gumbo last week with me before I was on a TV show. I would walk down the street and people would yell my name out down the street, and just from making soup, there's something there that needs to be, you know, embraced.
Wow. Is there any chance? I mean, you're super busy right now, of course, but down the road, would you ever revisit your original idea of what you wanted to do with the animal show and everything else?
Probably not, but hey, at least I made it on TV, right?
Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, this could be a springboard.
It's totally not. Nothing's ever out of the question. I never erase anything from my life. So, totally sure. But at this point, I think people would be a lot more excited to see me cook. And you gotta remember, the fans are more than half the part too. So you got to do what the people want sometimes. And the good news is I love cooking very much, and it's a very important part of my life, and I will always do it, and I will always feed people. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just part of who I am. It's in my genes. It's in my blood. It's in my skin. It's in my everything.
Yeah, no, your energy. I mean, that comes out of you. It's just like this is as much a part of your blood and your bones and everything inside of you. It's like food is part of that.
And it transfers into others as well. You know, when I'm fired up about stuff and I got great food cooking and I'm cooking my feelings out every day, and you know, people take that in, especially like I said, we're all stuck together on set. We don't get to see our families a lot. We don't get to go out and hang out and go to the club or go to the bar. We just work, and you know, it's very emotional. Filmmaking is a very emotional process. So um, me having that positive, super high energy all the time, it makes a difference. You know, it transfers into, it brings other people life. You know, and God forbid I have a day where I'm not feeling 100%. Everybody comes up. What's wrong with Gator today? Is he okay? Well, man, does he get a day off? No. He needs to be Gator all the time, and they're right. And then every time something like that happens, I say, you know what? You're right. I'm gonna turn it around right now, and I'll turn it back on, and it's a gift that I have that I want to share with the world.
That's awesome. That means that your energy and your personality is infectious, and I can already tell that as I'm talking to
No
you for the
doubt.
last hour. And I see Michelle asked a question that I was actually thinking about the same thing about. Do you have your own line of anything? Like, do you have hot sauce, or is that coming out? Or is
I
that
do have hot sauce. I put it on a hold at the end of last year because we were extremely busy finishing season 5.1 and finishing 1923, on top of a multitude of other projects we were working on. And so I do have a hot sauce. It's coming out in a couple weeks, couple months, maybe tops. It's already ready to go. It's branded. It's licensed. I'm just soft start to my year this year because I got a big year ahead of me. But it will be available in the next couple weeks, and the website will be up. And I'm going to put out a huge post to everybody on the Instagram and on the Facebook and on everything, and we'll have it available for sale in several stores. I know that our website, the Yellowstone merch website, is talking about also having it available. I've got a couple of grocery stores that have expressed some major interest in carrying it. So hopefully it's, you know, by Christmas, it'll be under everybody's tree this year.
Okay, that sounds great, because it seems like it's such a no-brainer to have some level of branding if it's going to be
Absolutely.
That you have.
And I just want everybody to like hot sauce again. You know, I just want everybody to you know, if I could take boring old, I'm not gonna you know, call out anybody's brand or anything, but if I could take some of those boring old pepper sauces off of one table at one restaurant anywhere, I would be very happy about that. Because it's 2023, man. We're done with boring pepper sauce, right? Give me something fun and exciting and delicious.
Sounds good. And this might be too far into the future, but do you have other things in your head, like a rub and some other things that you would want to brand of your own?
We will expand vastly from the hot sauce brand into other packaged food products, and eventually I would like to open up a small brick and mortar type situation where I could make a few delicious things that you could take home with you, and then maybe a few delicious things you could eat for lunch. And that's kind of the dream. And I've talked to many people about it. It's just I don't like to rush into anything. So when the time comes, we will do it. And then of course I also have the Yellowstone cookbook coming out in just a few weeks. And I don't know if that's even been advertised much, but here we are. The final draft comes out in 2 weeks, and all I have to do is approve it, and then I think we're going to be on the shelves here real shortly.
Well, that's awesome. Somebody just asked about, do you have a cookbook? You
Yep,
just
it is. It is. I've been working on it for a year and a half now, and we are at the end right now. We are at the completion stage.
Wow, that's awesome news. And I mean, you have so many things coming up, and you have obviously so much stuff going on with the shows. And as we kind of get close to kind of winding this down, I'm curious, if you had to pick your own personal last meal, what would you have?
Could it be anything?
Anything.
Even something that doesn't exist anymore?
Sure.
It would be any meal I had sitting in the kitchen at my grandmother's house. I remember my favorite activity as a kid would be go to my grandmother's house and go to the freezer and help her get rid of her leftovers. That was my favorite. And you want to talk about above average leftovers. These were not hamburger helper type situations. This was shrimp and corn stew. This was etouffee. This was crab stew. This was meatball stew. I had some really good meals, and pretty much anytime I'm cooking, especially Cajun food, that's where I am in my brain and in my heart, is sitting down at that counter eating lunch with my grandmother. And
wow.
So any meal that was there, that would be my last meal. Pick one, it doesn't matter.
That's an amazing answer. I really, really, really like that.
Thanks.
And
it's the truth.
Yeah. So just as we get close to winding this down, do you ever watch the show, even though you're so immersed in the show? Have you watched an episode?
It's very hard to watch yourself on TV, and I think a lot of actors probably feel that way. But I don't have a choice because my mother is a huge Yellowstone fan, and I go home for Christmas every year, and guess what we do? We watch all the. She'll wait for me to watch them all. We go watch all of the Yellowstone episodes. So yes, of course I watch Yellowstone. And 1923 and 1883 and all of them. I'm actually a huge fan of Mayor of Kingstown, believe it or not. But I think it's just because I'm a really big geek for Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, no, that show's just had its season finale.
I think it was just right up my alley. That's all. And it's a nice change because I've been looking at spurs and chaps and cow turds for about 6 years. So it's a nice little change of pace.
And I'm just randomly curious, if you could be any character other than Gator on Yellowstone, which one would you want to be?
Walker, because I got a big crush on Hassie Harrison. That's the best answer I come up with that. Because all the other characters, God, that sounds awful. So much drama, dude. Gotta like kill people or get killed or stab somebody. No, that's not me.
That's a great answer. I love your thinking.
No, that sounds awful, dude. I certainly wouldn't want to be a Dutton. Good Lord. And everybody in the world's after those people.
Well, Gator, thank you so much for taking the time today. I so appreciate it. Had such a wonderful time listening to all your stories and your behind the scenes things. I know people in the chat are saying the exact same stuff, and I wish you every success with the cookbook, your hot sauce, the show, everything that you have coming up, and everywhere down the road. If you find that you have a window of time and you want to come back on, I would love to have you come back on and talk about
Mark,
this further.
You give me an invite anytime you'd like, and I'd love to join all you folks anytime.
Thank you much. So I so appreciate that, and have a great afternoon down there.
I will. It really is a truly beautiful day in Texas. It's about 77 degrees out here. I'm gonna go see if I can't find another wonderfully cold beer and finish my Saturday up.
That sounds better than up here because I see it's like a mix of rain and snow actually coming down in Seattle. So you're in the better place.
Yeah, it's real nice today, guys. Everybody, thank you so much. I'm honored that you guys all wanted to hear me on the show today, and it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gator. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.